Hello, my name is Nelson Delgado. I'm an energy psychologist in Mississauga, Ontario, who also pays attention to celestial events, positions, so on and so forth, and how the frequencies of our solar system affect our consciousness both at the macro and the micro level. In this Gemini season, we'll be talking about trying to maintain our presence while we are experiencing a lot of mental noise. And we're going to be addressing both Gemini season, yes, but at the same time, key influences that are going to be correlated to the season, how it affects global consciousness, sometime maybe even how things have passed and what's to come, so that we are better prepared for how fear will be used to create greater and greater control over the masses. And so the few can maintain their control over the many. And this is not about an us versus them mentality to this video. It's more about understanding how to see what's happening, how to see differently about how you'd want things to be, and how you can play your role that comes natural to you, so that when you are making choices from your presence, you'll realize that you do not have to accept the narratives that are being projected outwardly towards you. This video is to help you focus in on what's important and how to allow your true sense of self to shine through in your choices that you would want to make, and be part of a movement where you feel alive, but you also feel grounded at the same time. So let's get to it. The core theme here is that we have to prioritize our thoughts, the thoughts that are nourishing to us, and what thoughts matter most to our true sense of self or our soul. Filter out all the garbage and just pay attention to those thoughts. It's going to be a very strong mental discipline. This will be a season of thought exchanges, confronting distractions, superficiality, performative thinking, and fear-based narratives. This is not simply a season about communication. This is going to be a season about discernment, nervous system awareness, emotional maturity, authentic expression, and reclaiming inner guidance in a world saturated with noise. The collective atmosphere may encourage reaction over reflection, certainty over contemplation, performance over presence, and fear over trust. Yet this season also provides a very powerful opportunity to become deeply aware of the difference between influence and manipulation, self-guidance and social conditioning, clarity and mental overstimulation. The macro to micro of this video. As global systems experience uncertainty, rapid information exchange, social polarization, economic pressure, and increasing emotional reactivity, many individuals may unconsciously internalize fear-based survival responses. This can manifest as emotional overwhelm, compulsive thinking, hypervigilance, distraction, identity performance, people-pleasing, forceful communication, shutdown, procrastination, or fear of authentic self-expression. The invitation of this Gemini season is not to disconnect from the world. The invitation is to remain internally guided while engaging consciously with the world. And here's a central quote. External influence that is rooted in clarity invites consent rather than one's compliance. It's time for us to switch from fear-based reaction and compulsive thoughts, forceful actions, distraction, superficial identities, and emotional survival. We can shift towards self-assurance, embodiment, discernment from the heart, not necessarily always from the head, even from the gut too. emotional timing, making sure that we're at an equilibrium rather than responding out of emotional highs and lows, choosing conscious speech, and authentic self-guidance practices. Here's the macro perspective. Right now we're in this age of mental noise. The modern collective environment increasingly rewards speed, reaction, outrage, visibility, and simplified narratives. Many of us out there are saying that we're feeling mentally exhausted, emotionally overstimulated, unable to focus deeply on things, pressure to constantly respond, and disconnected from our own inner knowing. Since this is my topic of interest and the gene keys are something I study very often across the online world in relevance to this topic and self-awareness communities, the reoccurring theme includes nervous system fatigue, emotional burnout, inability to rest, overthinking, fear of missing out, identity confusion, compulsive productivity, and fear of being unseen or misunderstood. This season magnifies these themes. It's not a punishment, it's more like a test of one's self-awareness, because what becomes conscious can be transformed. What it affects in your body. It affects the throat and the sacral centers. This season strongly activates communication, counsel, manifestation. At the sacral center, when we're grounding it, it affects our life force, creative life force energy, emotional vitality, and relational energy. When fear dominates these centers, the body often communicates before the mind fully understands. Many people out there are saying they feel tightness in their throat, pressure while they're speaking, fear of saying the wrong thing, compulsive explaining, inability to speak clearly, emotional suppression, over talking, maybe like the way I'm doing it now, nervous laughter, jaw tension, vocal fatigue, or feeling invisible and unheard. There are others out there that are saying the opposite polarity. They're speaking forcefully, dominating conversations, over-explaining to gain approval, performing confidence, intellectual defensiveness, or even needing to always appear certain. These responses often arise from deeper fears: fear of vulnerability, fear of rejection, fear of irrelevance, fear of being controlled, fear of losing your identity, fear of not even being valued. These collective shadows from these challenges often attempts to protect the self through performance, control, silence, even such as going into isolation, being alone with yourself for a long period of time, forcing others to open up, distraction, or intellectual superiority. Yet the body remembers all of these things internally. Every tissue in our body has memory, because if water has memory, and water basically makes up most of our bodies, we are literally walking memory machines. And many people online describe, quote, "I was constantly speaking for survival rather than from grounded clarity." Here is a higher expression of the throat center for a consensus. As awareness develops, the throat relaxes. Communication becomes slower, more intentional, less defensive, more compassionate, and more aligned with the truth within ourselves, and maybe even the truth people can resonate with. The need to convince others weakens. The need to dominate dissolves. One begins to trust their own timing, trusting the silence, and appreciating it. Also appreciating self-restraint and one's true authentic expression to be shared. How the shadows affect the sacral center. Common fear-based experiences are chronic exhaustion, emotional numbness, inability to rest, compulsive busyness, fear of slowing down, dopamine seeking, creative burnout, sexual confusion, emotional dependency, difficulty receiving things, money, rewards, or even fear that stillness will expose unresolved emotions that we have to feel through. Others describe pressure to constantly produce, forcing creativity, needing external validation, inability to feel satisfied, emotional hunger, and restlessness despite success. This mirrors the collective themes of impatience, hunger, that's a personal one for me, the fear of never being satiated, when true nourishment comes from deep inward experiences, and then being able to alchemize and then come through a true sense of self-expression and feeling fully conscious of what you're doing most of the time. So getting back to the other one, distraction, forceful nature, and a fear of surrender. Many online reflections from people describe this experience as, I kept searching for stimulation because I was afraid to sit with myself. The higher expression of this sacral center can become something that, one can, as they trust and they develop, the sacral center begins to regulate. Individuals can report more sustainable energy, emotional grounding, greater creativity, deeper intimacy, clearer boundaries, and renewed relationships with authentic desire. The nervous system no longer needs constant stimulation to feel alive. Presence itself becomes nourishing. Here are some of the lessons for this Gemini season. There are 5 of them. And keep in mind that the Gemini season, where the Earth is placed, it's in Sagittarius. So this is the balance. I think and I see. And being able to understand how to discipline yourself about what you're thinking and how you'd like to see the world and how you have to contribute and put your own little visionary stamp in it, or your own little manifestation stamp in it. Lesson 1, performance versus true strength. This is the challenge between gene key 20 and 34, or hexagram 20 and 34. And that is the fear of vulnerability. And it has a shadow of force that it fuels. The collective may attempt to compensate for uncertainty through forceful communication, reactive certainty, emotional defensiveness, performative confidence, hyper-independence, and aggressive identity protection. Yet true strength is not force. True strength is grounded presence. So here's something you can reflect upon. Where am I performing strength instead of allowing authentic self-assurance to emerge? You can pause the video to journal on that one. Lesson number 2, responsibility versus numbness. This is gene key or hexagrams 16 and 9. The shadow of indifference and inertia, where overstimulation can slowly create emotional paralysis. Many people recognize procrastination, doom scrolling, fragmented focus, passive consumption, and avoidance disguised as comfort. Here's a reflection for that challenge. What meaningful action have I been postponing because fear feels safer than movement? You can pause the video again to reflect on that and journal. Lesson number 3, the addiction to more. This one is more personal to me. This is gene key 35 and gene key 5. The shadow of hunger and impatience. And it's the fear of never being satiated and the fear of surrender. This part of the season highlights compulsive novelty seeking, inability to slow down, fear of missing out, emotional restlessness, and dissatisfaction despite achievement. The shadow fears silence because silence often reveals truth. And here is the reflection. What am I constantly chasing that temporarily distracts me from the deeper self-awareness? And here's the reflection. What am I constantly chasing that temporarily distracts me from deeper self-awareness? You can pause and reflect on that one. Lesson 4, control versus trust. This is Gene Key or Gates 45 and 26. I also have 26 activated in my chart, and that's kind of the fuel for the trickster archetype. And here is the shadow of dominance and pride. Under pressure, individuals and systems often attempt to maintain control through image management, emotional persuasion, scarcity narratives, manipulation, social hierarchy, and performative certainty. Yet, authentic influence does not require force. Reflect on this one. Where am I or where are we trying to control perception instead of trusting authentic alignment? You can pause on that one to reflect. And then the last lesson, the death of the false self, which I'm not a fan of. And here's lesson number 5. Understanding that the mortal self isn't your end-all be-all identity, and that you don't have to kill your ego in order for you to move forward and thrive in your life. There are 2 types of selves here, the mortal and the immortal. The immortal lives on, and the immortal knows more from its collective experiences over lifetimes, if you believe in reincarnation. But it also is an element of knowing from the central source of creation. We are an extension of that. So therefore, that knowing is there to reassure you of what to do. At the same time, the mortal identity is there for you to make sure that you make ends meet, that you can pay your bills, you have a roof over your head, clothes, clean clothes, hopefully, and that you get the necessities met. So once you find a consistent rhythm of security, then you can start going after what would help you feeling like you're thriving or that you've engaged your passion. This is the challenge. And that's the shadow, and this is the gene key 12 and 11, or hexagrams 12 and 11. And this is the shadow of vanity and obscurity. And this is on the cusp of Gemini and Cancer. So this kind of bleeds over. In this season, it's time to confront fears around visibility, identity, relevance, self-expression, and being misunderstood. Many individuals may notice that they're hiding their gifts, overperforming uniqueness, or shaping themselves around external approval. Here's a reflection for you. Who am I when I stop performing for validation? Contemplate that one before we move into the next part of this video. Now we're going to address the fear of self-guidance, from the macro to the micro in terms of our empowerment. The purpose of awareness is not fear. It is choice. Even during periods of social uncertainty, emotional polarization, information overload, and external pressure, individuals still possess discernment. They still have the opportunity to have their nervous systems be engaged with awareness. Emotional responsibility can take place, inner guidance, and making conscious choices. This season is asking you, can you remain internally anchored while externally engaged? Not disconnected, not passive, but truly present. Here are some self-guided reframing. Here's a fear-based response. I need to react immediately. Here's a self-guided response. I can pause long enough to respond consciously. Here's another fear-based response. I need others to validate my perception. Here's a self-guided response. I trust myself enough to contemplate before absorbing external narratives. Here's another fear-based response. If I slow down, I will lose momentum or relevance. Here's a self-guided response. Stillness allows me to reconnect with what genuinely matters. Here's a fear-based response. I must perform strength. Here is a self-guided response. Authenticity creates sustainable inner stability. Here are some practices for embodiment of these better options. For your nervous system awareness, observe breathing changes, throat tension, jaw clenching, emotional urgency, compulsive scrolling, over-explaining, and emotional exhaustion. These are often signals that the nervous system has shifted into a survival response, or the sympathetic system is turned on and activated. Shift your awareness, and in itself, it begins to regulate. Here are some daily embodiment practices. Conscious pausing. Before responding, posting, reacting, or consuming information, pause, breathe, and ask, does this align with my deeper values? Number 2, voice awareness. Speak slower. Notice throat tension, urgency, emotional force, and the need to convince. Practice communicating from grounded clarity instead of emotional pressure. Number 3, sacral regulation. Spend time daily, offline, in nature, in movement such as qigong or yoga, or a hybrid, in stillness, or in creative expression without performance. Allow the nervous system to reconnect with natural rhythm. Information discernment. Not every narrative deserves emotional investment. Prioritize depth over speed, contemplation over reaction, and wisdom over stimulation. In the description below, I will provide 10 self-study questions that you can engage with and find out if you are leaning towards more sympathetic nervous responses or parasympathetic, which is more restful, aligned, and in presence responses. Here's a theme that you can use in your meditation. Presence over mental noise. Here's a meditation and intention: to observe thoughts without becoming consumed by them, to soften the need for force, to regulate your nervous system, to reconnect with inner guidance, to cultivate embodied clarity, to remember the following: I prioritize my thoughts to what matters most to my soul or spirit. Here are some evolutionary tasks that you can consider. Delay reaction. Practice pausing before responding emotionally, online, or in conversation. Number 2, observe fear narratives. Notice when fear attempts to create urgency, distort perception, or disconnect you from self-trust. Number 3, simplify information intake. Reduce overstimulation. Create intentional space for contemplation, silence, and emotional integration. Number 4, practice authentic communication. Speak with honesty, some restraint, compassion, and grounded clarity. Connect with natural rhythm. Honor, rest, embodiment, creativity, emotional pacing, and regular nervous system regulation. Here's something you can integrate in the finality. Gemini season is not asking humanity to become less informed. It is asking humanity to become more conscious, more discerning of the heart and gut signals in the body, more embodiment of what you want to integrate, and more internally guided. The deeper challenge is not simply external influence. The deeper challenge is whether fear disconnects us from our own inner authority. Presence does not have to be passive. Presence is power without force. And self-guidance begins the moment we become willing to pause long enough to truly hear ourselves. And here's a closing quote for you. Influence rooted in clarity invites consent rather than compliance. This may be something that I've already said earlier, but needs to be resaid again. If you have enjoyed this video, please like. If you're finding that this content is really deeply insightful, it's helping you navigate internal struggle and finally learn how to witness the signals within you that have always been there, that you thought helped you get lucky at times, but it was never luck. It was simply listening to those signals and then discovering that the more you listen to them, the more momentum you'll build towards a life of flow. And I can't stress that enough. So if you find that this video can help others, please share it. I'm here to serve with these videos to help us navigate this year with more ease, more sense of self-assurance, inner sense of security, so that you can create the kind of year you really want, even amidst all the turmoil. So I still think things are going to get worse on the macro, but always there's going to be like a dark night before and eventually the sun will rise again. And I believe these next few months should probably be the worst, and then we'll start to see the light shine through on the sunrise starting September or October. So you've got everything you need inside of you to navigate this. I am pleased that you found me. I'm grateful that you've listened and to my video for as long as you have. And if you want to learn more about me and how I can support you too, there's links to my meetup group down below. If you are in the Southern Ontario region, relatively close to Mississauga, Oakville area, I do have a June 7th event for men who want to feel more self-empowered by their true sense of self, as opposed to only using logic and reason to help them navigate the decisions they make in life. So, thank you again, and God bless you all in your journeys. Namaste.